Hey, what's going on, guys? Xuen here. So today I recently stumbled across an Icy Veins post that is going to shed a little bit more insight on the Legion expansion. Some pretty exciting stuff. I will be linking this post down in the description of the video, so if you guys want to check this out for yourself. But I'm pretty much going to be reading through the entire thing and talking about my opinions. But just keep in mind that this stuff is subject to change. This was an interview that they did with the devs. But again, just keep in mind that this is pretty early on, at least in the development stage, and we haven't heard much. The beta is not out yet, so just don't take a lot of the stuff to heart. But a lot of the stuff seems pretty solid. So you can take what you want from this video. Let me know what you guys think of these, what I'm going to be talking about in the description of the video. Again, I would really love to start a conversation with you guys. Hopefully we can start giving our opinions as well, and hopefully some of the devs will see this. So let's start off with the Demon Hunters. So the new class is Demon Hunters, and I'm going to start reading this article, and it says, as it stands, Demon Hunters are slated to wear leather armor. The developers used to feel that having too many classes on one armor type could cause problems, but as the game moved towards personal loot, that has become less of an issue. So if you guys remember in Warlords of Draenor, they were adding, like, if you run High Maul or you run like any raid, you have personal loot. You got a personal chance of getting a drop. You can roll, and that's really good. So a lot of people, including myself, were kind of worried when there's only 2 male classes, but I forgot, and I'm sure a lot of you forgot as well, that they did add personal loot, so this is no longer going to be an issue. So that's really nice. An all-new weapon type, Glaives, will be the only weapon type that Demon Hunters can use. Now this is really cool. They are a weapon pair that comes together and fills both hand slots. Having only one available weapon for the class will not be an issue in Legion, as you will mostly focus on your artifact throughout the expansion. In the future, Demon Hunters might eventually dual-wield standard agility weapon types. Now, we're going to be talking about the artifacts a little bit later, and I really am excited about the artifacts, and I'm hoping that these artifacts are going to be the only weapons you're going to be using throughout the entire expansion, but we're going to be moving into that a little bit later. As for the Glaives, I hope they keep this idea, because if you guys think Demon Hunters, you think War Glaives, I can't really see a Demon Hunter using swords, you know? I hope that they're the only weapons that Demon Hunters can use, that way you can identify that class, you know? There's a lot of leather classes, leather wares out there. If you look at rogues and monks, you can easily get those two confused if they're using the same weapons. Obviously, one's going to have them weapons on his back, but if they both unsheathed and they were going into combat, they could technically have the same transmog, you know. I'm just hoping that at least with Demon Hunters, you can easily identify them, and it's like, yes, that is a Demon Hunter. So I'm really hoping that Glaives are going to be their only weapon choice, and I'm really excited to see that. Now, as for the Black Temple War Glaives, I'm really hoping that those still stay as, you know, one-handed swords. Because I personally know of a few people that would get incredibly pissed if they made those only Demon Hunter accessible. So hopefully they remember to do that, and not change that. Because I know I would be pretty pissed if I got those to drop on my monk one day, and then I'm like, oh crap, I can't use it. So I'm really hoping that at least they'll keep that the way it is. So moving on to the last post on Demon Hunters. Demon Hunter's starting level has not been set, but the starting level between 95 and level 100 is currently being debated. As it is a hero class, it is hard to imagine a level 1 Demon Hunter running around Elwyn Forest. Now, I completely agree with this. If you guys remember the hero class for Death Knights, how you started off at level 55 and you leveled up to level 58 or 60, depending if you had BOAs or not. This allows you to get more in-depth story with what it means to be a Death Knight, and in this case, you know, what it means to be a Demon Hunter. So I'm really excited to see them. Hopefully they're going to be taking it with a leveling system throughout that, because if you guys remember how they were talking about, you know, where you're going to be doing your Demon Hunter quest, that is the area where Sargeras used to capture all the demons that before he went bad. That is where Sargeras, you know, stored all his demons like a prison. And then, obviously, he unleashed them when he went, you know, evil. But, you know, that area should be huge because, you know, to Sargeras, that is pretty much his prison for all the demons of the Legion. So I'm really excited to see what they're going to be doing. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a short story, and there is a lot of lore behind this, so I'm really excited to kind of do that Demon Hunter quest. The question is, how long is it going to be? Because level 95 to 100 can take quite a long time, so it's going to be interesting to see how much experience you get per quest, how long it's going to take, but we'll see. So moving on, we're going to be talking about artifacts. So artifacts wield the weapons of unimaginable power. Let's look at this first post where we're talking about artifacts. You obtain an artifact early on in the Legion experience. This is the weapon you will use throughout the expansion. You will not get weapon drops in Legion, which is really nice. Something that wasn't mentioned during the reveal is that each artifact number of relic slots, which will determine its raw item stats, DPS, item level, etc., and modifiers to the traits you've chosen. So the artifact stats will improve as you defeat bosses. Now, it says that it's going to be improving as you defeat bosses, but I do remember in the live stream how they were talking about how you can level it up in PvP as well. So PvE is not going to be the only way you're going to level up your artifacts. Now, if you guys remember them talking about the talent system with the artifacts. Now, this is something that was not mentioned in this post, but I am super excited about the artifact weapons. You know, I think it's freaking amazing that you have this weapon that, you know, Blizzard is pretty much making it define you as a character. Like, we can't fight the Legion alone. We got to go back and we got to look for these weapons of power in order to fight the Burning Legion, and we upgrade them and make them more powerful. And the way that we're describing it, these weapons pretty much is saying these weapons are going to dictate you, your hero, you know, your player. This is going to be, it's going to pretty much dictate your character. So it'd be pretty foolish not being able to use these artifacts in PvP. Now, I'm really curious to see how they're going to balance it as far as talents go, because if you guys remember looking at some of the talents, there were some that were saying that you can get a battle res for DKs, you could get bloodlust for shamans, and in PvP that can be very questionable whether or not that's going to be balanced or not, and it's definitely not balanced in PvP. So what I would like to see them do is to have a separate talent system for both PvE and PvP, not just say you can't use this in PvP, because that's being lazy. I really feel if they added a second talent tree, that would be freaking amazing for artifact weapons for PvP. That's definitely going to add so much diversity, because it reminds me of the old talent system that we used to have before they added the new one. So I'm really excited with the artifact fragments. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do, what they're going to bring. Again, this is still very early, so we don't know too much. We can only speculate at this point. So moving, again, I really want to see what you guys think of the artifact weapons, talking down in the description below. I'm really curious to see or hear you guys' thoughts on these artifact fragments. So be sure to talk about it in the description below. So moving on to the next post, it will be very important to see how the story plays regarding artifact fragments, or artifact weapons, that come from characters like Tyrion. No spoilers. So Tyrion, Forging, so like the Ashbringer, sorry. So existing legendary weapons and items are unchanged. Artifacts will be presented differently. There will not be any legendary weapons in Legion. So this is really cool. So they're pretty much saying that the artifact weapons are your weapons to customize, to build. And there's so much more room, especially with the different color variations for the artifacts. That is the first stepping stone to allowing character armor dyes, which has been asked for a very long time. We finally got transmog. The next step is these weapons, and hopefully the next step after that will be colored dyes for your armor, so you could really customize your character. And I'm hoping that Blizzard is actually starting to realize how much that means to characters, because myself, I'm not really a big transmog hero. I'm not really a big I'm not an RPer at all. But you know, I would really like to see weapon dyes, because that would add a lot of diversity, a lot of unique, you know, sets to the game, and a lot more cool transmog opportunities for people. So an update is the artifacts can still be transmogged into other items, which is really cool, but other items cannot be transmogged into artifacts. Alright, so let's look at the setting, which is Explore the Broken Isles. Storyline, this is the main universe Illidan. There are no alternate universe, there's no quote-unquote alternate universe Azeroth going on. Gul'dan was banished through the twisting nether into our world, into our time today. The scene where Gul'dan was discovered and awoke Illidan was part of the Demon Hunter experience, and why the Legion is at this place. They came specifically for Illidan. Medivh was at the pub, quote-unquote. So if you guys want to go check out that, you know, short cutscene sort of tying the expansion, the two expansions, Warlords of Draenor and Legion together, is on the Blizzard website or on your Battle.net launcher. I highly suggest checking out both those trailers. Next is the only time you spend inside the Emerald Nightmare is in the raid zone. So the influence will be felt outside, but only the raid takes place inside the Nightmare or the Emerald Dream. The Emerald Dream / Nightmare might expand on further in the future, which is really cool. I'm glad that they're going to expand on Emerald Dream and not just make it a raid, because I know a lot of people were expecting that to be an expansion, myself included. I remember they actually had the expansion released, and Burning Crusade, I believe, was going to be the Emerald Dream. But I remember the developers saying that they finished all the zones, but it looked too green to them, which is, you know, it is the Emerald Dream, it is green, so I kind of understand that a lot of the zones would look the same. So it was sort of a smart decision on their part, but I would like to see more of the Emerald Dream. I'm sure I'm not the only one, so I'm glad they said that they're going to be adding more stuff in the Emerald Dream in the future. So the Mists of Pandaria story saw the Horde expelled from Dalaran, but with Khadgar as leader of the Kirin's Horde, he has worked with the Horde and feels responsible for Gul'dan, and he wants to help them from both sides, so that's really cool. Asked if Wrathion is back, he foretold the coming of the Legion, quote-unquote, we'll see. Karazhan's brief appearance in the cinematic teaser was important. Karazhan is an important place. Now, if they bring Karazhan back as a raid, I will pick up PvE again in a heartbeat. Karazhan is still one of my favorite raids to this day, and I'm really excited. Now, something that's really interesting is Notsid, if anyone knows who Notsid is, and myself, but mainly Notsid was the one that brought this up, is he thinks that Khadgar is actually Medivh, and this is becoming more and more obvious as these expansion scenes have been going on. Now, first we saw Khadgar with the staff that only, you know, the Guardians can use. Now, on top of that, Notsid was like, you know, Khadgar might be Medivh. Now we see this new trailer. First off, we start at Karazhan, which is Medivh's tower. Next, we see him as a crow or raven, which is pretty much Medivh as well. And the last hint was at the end of the trailer, Khadgar flew in to the middle of the Stormwind room, sort of like in Warcraft 3 when Arthas killed his father, and, you know, was, you know, in that room. I don't know, like, I don't know if they could be any more obvious. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about that. It's definitely a lot to think about, but it's starting to become more and more obvious. Maybe Khadgar is Medivh, I have no idea. But they hinted at that pretty clearly. So, regarding the new Violet Hold and other Dalaran changes, the devs noted that Dalaran has some ancient purposes that weren't fully understood, and it is affected by being brought close to the Tomb of Sargeras. So if you guys remember them showing the map, Dalaran is going to be very close to the Tomb of Sargeras, and that is sort of going to be the central hub, the capital city for both Alliance and Horde, which I think is really cool. Actually, do you miss Lich King? Even though you did run around Dalaran a lot, it was, if you actually turned on the Dalaran music back in the day and you were just kind of at home, you know, you felt really peaceful, it had really peaceful music, and, you know, you were either fishing in that little pond, or, you know, you were just running around, or just AFKing, and Dalaran was a really cool hub to hang out at. So I'm glad they're bringing it back. So let's take a tiny little look at gameplay. So gameplay, classes will evolve in a number of ways in Legion. The development team is looking closely at some fantasy for each class, some core fantasy for each class, which is really fucking cool. Talent changes and class changes are being made, stay tuned. The PvP talent system also gives the developers room to take PvP type talents out of the current talent trees, PvP talents will not function in PvE environments. Now, this is one of the best changes I've ever seen, and one of the biggest step forwards to balancing PvP I've ever seen Blizzard take. The fact that they're actually starting to separate PvE and PvP is huge. This is going to allow for a lot more balancing in PvP. This is going to allow for a lot more different builds. This is going to allow for so much more class diversity. The fact that you're going to have a completely new talent tree for PvP is just massive. Like, they're going to add more spells. They're going to, and if you guys PvE, they're going to add more spells. Like, this is actually so huge. Like, there's going to be so much that's coming to Legion. So I'm super excited, and I hope they go through with this. I'm just so excited. Again, I don't know, let me know what you guys think of these in the comment section down below, but I'm really excited for these changes, especially, you know, the fact that they're separating these and starting to look at these separately rather than as a whole. Let's move on. So the example of class changes, the Survival Hunter Spear artifact was brought up. In Legion, Survival Hunters will be a melee spec that utilizes a pet. The two different specializations, the developers will try to de-homogenize the classes. Further to do this, Beast Mastery Hunters will fight at range with the pet, while Marksmanship Hunters will fight at range with no pet. Now, this is really fucking cool. I personally really loved the melee aspect of Hunters before they removed their melee weapons. I really liked, you know, attacking and then they got really close to you and then you would like wing clip disengage, or, you know, set a trap down before you had disengage and you would raptor strike. You know, I'm really excited to see the old school Hunters being brought back, so I'm really curious to see how they're going to be going into developing these classes. Demonology Warlocks will be masters of summoning and controlling demons. Metamorphosis sort of came to dominate the class, but the devs are refocusing the spec on demons. Now, this is really cool. They're talking about how Demonology might not have Metamorphosis anymore, which I'm sure will make a lot of people really salty that loved the Metamorphosis with Demonology, but at the same time, the new class, which is Demon Hunters, is going to be focusing around Metamorphosis Burst for what it looks like, and I'm really curious to see how they're going to be focusing this around demons. So Affliction will still continue to be about decay, and Destruction will be about bursts of Fellfire. Now, I'm really hoping, for Kobrak's sake, that they're actually going to revamp the entire Destro spec. I personally used to play an old school Destrolock, and I really loved the old playstyle of Destrolocks. So I'm really excited to see them come back and really revamp a lot of these classes. Again, nothing for monks yet, so I'm really curious to see them entirely rework the Windwalker spec. No stat squish is planned for Legion. Health numbers are fairly high, but that is because health was intentionally increased to manage the feel and flow of healing and DPS. Or a flow of healing. DPS is still easily an expansion away from the numbers of players we're seeing in Siege of Orgrimmar. I don't really know the amount of numbers that players were seeing in Siege because I didn't raids, but some people that raided will probably know. Professions are getting a lot of new stuff. The profession team for Legion is the largest that Blizzard has ever had for WoW, and they clearly heard the feedback that professions were underutilized in Warlords and overlapped with the garrison too much. Now, this is really nice, and I really hope that professions are back. Even though it was annoying to grind out professions, I'm really excited to see if they're going to be making professions, you know, not mandatory, but it's going to help buff you if you decide to go that extra mile for your character and gear out the profession. So if you guys have been watching this long and, you know, want to get those extra profession buffs, I would go to your garrison and level up your professions now, because it might be harder when Legion comes out. That's what I would do. Realm Firsts are not coming back. There was a value in some non-method things, like first player to beat Brawlers Guild and Mythic Guilds first, etc. But the general philosophy is to allow players to take their time and enjoy content at their own pace. Plenty of third parties actively track the first 200, etc. So they're talking about how other websites can still track If you've done like Iron Man achievement, if you've done, you know, world first, if you've done stuff like that. There's a lot of websites they're saying for that, but they don't want to add that into the game because they feel like that's going to ruin the experience for players. I sort of agree and disagree with this to a point. I think that's cool to have competition, especially with world first and realm first and stuff like that. I don't know if this is a great idea to remove this. I can understand that you want to cater to casual players, but at the same time, I personally know that there's a lot of competition when it comes to, you know, having that achievement in game for world first and stuff like that. So I don't really know how I feel about that one. Let me know what you guys think about that in the description. But an update is other warlock specializations will not be losing access to demon pets. All 3 warlock specs will utilize their demons. So hopefully they will remove sacrifice. The last thing is miscellaneous. Garrisons are staying in Draenor. If you want to go back and visit them, you can. They're always designed as something that you would leave in Draenor. The developers may revisit the system with something bigger, better, and different in the future, and hopefully they will do that, just that. Order halls are very different. They are shared multiplayer space, which I think is really cool. They just happen to be the place you'll go to send your champions on missions. They don't duplicate the functionality of cities. No auction house, no bank, which I think is really fucking cool. That kind of forces you to get out into the world, but it sort of serves as another hub for just your class. So if you are a monk, you're going to be hanging out at this place. If you're a shaman, you're going to be hanging out in the Maelstrom. If you're a demon, if you're a warlock, you're going to be hanging out in one of the Legion portals. I think that's really cool. It'll allow you to kind of communicate with other of your same class peers, I guess. So I think that's really cool. So release date is not yet set. The full cinematic is still being worked on, but it isn't quite complete yet. For new players who feel intimidated by the size and scope of the game, the developers feel that the character boost helps get people to playing with their friends faster. So that's pretty much the end of the interview, guys. I'm personally really excited. Again, I will be leaving this interview down in the description below if you guys want to read this for yourself. But again, let me know what you guys think with the artifact fragments, with the new, not artifact fragments, but the artifact weapons, the new class. I'm super pumped. I'm super stoked about the new expansion. They look like they're trying so hard and bringing so much to this expansion. If a lot of these changes come to pass, I guarantee this is probably going to be one of the best expansions Warcraft has ever seen. I'm just really hoping they follow through with a lot of these changes. I'm trying to, you know, keep optimistic about it. I'm trying to keep an open mind. I'm trying not to get too excited, but I am just so stoked. Again, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, more Legion stuff. Again, let me know what you guys think in the description of the video with your ideas. Hopefully Blizzard will see this video so we can get some of our ideas out there to the development team. But again, hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Look forward to seeing you in the next video, and yeah, peace guys.